Good evening, everyone. My name is Marne D. I'm an alcoholic. I am really, really happy to be here tonight. What an amazing group. And Bella, the love and service dog, this is now like officially my favorite meeting in the whole world because she was right there wagging her tail. Oh my gosh, I love Bella. Really grateful to be here. I want to thank the group for asking me to speak. This really is a lovely group. Thank you, Chester. Where is Chester? Thank you, Chester, for all your service this weekend. He arranged for us to get picked up yesterday. I spoke at his group last night, and it's 4D, right? Is the name of your home group? Amazing group. So got to speak there last night. And then he drove us all the way over here from Marne today. And super happy I get to see my sponsor here. I have a sobriety date. It's May 17th, 2017. I have a home group. It's called Connect the Dots in Las Vegas, Nevada. I have the best sponsor in the world. She's right there. And I sponsor women in Alcoholics Anonymous. And those are all things that I take really seriously today. And I didn't for a long time. May 17th, 2017 is not my first sobriety date. I went to my first meeting when I was 20 years old in 1993 in Omaha, Nebraska at the Millard Club. And I needed to stop drinking. I knew I needed to stop drinking. My mom was threatened to take custody of my son away from me, and she should have. And so if you do the math there, that's 24 years of relapse in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous. So if you're new in here, welcome. If you're coming back, welcome. Thank God you're back. If you're in here and you're just not drinking and you're not lit up about life and you're still uncomfortable in your own skin, welcome. Hopefully something I say here tonight will give you some hope, maybe. I've had three very different experiences in Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's very similar to my sponsor story, and I give her credit for this because it helped me identify it. I relapsed in and out for 24 years where I visited AA meetings, and I call it my taking years. All I did was take from AA. I thought that I knew that I needed to stop drinking, and I thought that not drinking was a treatment for alcoholism. And then from like years 0 to 3 were my attending years where I was, finally in. And then the last 5 to 6 years have been in Las Vegas, and I'm hoping to get sober with enough time to talk about that because that's when my life really took off and when I got rocketed into the fourth dimension. But the reason why I relapsed for so many years, there's a lot of reasons, but it's because I love alcohol. Absolutely love alcohol. It was my first spiritual experience. We were at a meeting Friday night in Seattle. We were visiting with my son and his family, and we were at a meeting, and this statement, this 2-word sentence in one of the stories said, "Alcohol helped." And I believe it was Marty's story. I had never heard it before, but I was with my first sponsor, and she had written down Marty, so I'm assuming it was her story. But that, I should have had that tattooed on my forehead. Alcohol helped. It was the solution for every problem. I was an anxious girl. Oh, just an anxious kid. I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of ghosts. I was afraid of my older sisters. I was afraid of school. I was awkward. I just didn't fit anywhere. And there was a lot of stuff going on in my house that probably shouldn't have been going on. And so for a lot of years, I was really confused. I thought that's why I was an alcoholic. Turns out, nope, just have alcoholism. And was a huge relief when I actually found that out decades later. But as soon as I found that first drink, I was 12 years old. It was a magical, special night. And literally, I found God that night. And I went to church every Sunday with my family. I grew up in a beautiful home in a small town, Fremont, Nebraska, 25,000 people when I was there in the 80s. And I think there's 25,001 people there now. It has not changed. Surrounded by cornfields, a pig plant. This is just where I grew up. And so what we did on the weekends is we drank. And I could not wait that night that I found out that we were going to be able to to drink, and we were with some older boys. I was always boy crazy, always, like from like 10 on, just boy crazy, and never had a good picker until recently, until my last pick, that is. But we snuck out of a game with some older boys, and we had peach schnapps and apple schnapps, and I'll never forget the warmth and comfort and how I just like fit in my own skin, and I wasn't worried what anybody was thinking. I was with an older boy that I was in love with and was sure that I was going to get married to and have children with. And I did end up having a child with him, actually. He ended up fathering my child several years later. But, you know, we played music. I danced with him to, does anybody remember Journey, the song Faithfully? We slow danced. I mean, when it's like, when you're 12 and it's your first crush and you dance with the guy that you have a crush on to Faithfully, that's it. That's all I needed. That's all she wrote. I'm like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And at that point, I should have tattooed alcohol helped, because I was never even able to talk to him before. We were, you know, and all of my friends ended up going home on time. They all drank too. And, you know, to this day, none of them are alcoholic. They all drank just like I did until it was time to stop. They all stopped. I didn't. Now, I thought it was my idea, right? But even the first time I drank, I had that phenomenon of craving. I had that allergy. I needed a drink so far before I took that first drink. And I ended up passing out. His stepmom had to take me home. I got in a lot of trouble, and I did not care. It was game on. And I was fortunate or unfortunate, I don't know how you want to call it, but like I said, there was a lot of chaos in my house, and school came very easily to me. I always had straight A's, didn't have to work that hard, would show up, take the test, whatever, and I always had straight A's, and I was a very, very good tennis player. And I learned from a very young age that as long as I did well in school, and as long as I was going to my tennis practice and winning tournaments, I could do whatever I wanted on the weekends. And part of that is just the era that I grew up in. And, you know, we're in a small town, and we're Germans, and you work hard and you play hard. That's just how it was. My dad is a very hard drinker, and I don't think he has what I have. And so, whoops, did not turn my phone off. That was a sponsee phone. Or didn't turn my watch off, sorry. And so they just didn't question it. And I already started that double life, and it was really fun until, you know, I got pregnant when I was 16 by the guy that I danced to Faithfully with. And like a good alcoholic teenager, I just pretended like it wasn't happening, and I didn't tell anybody until I was 7.5 months pregnant. And my parents were so lovely. And just looking back, and now, had you asked me when I was 25 what my parents were like, I would have told you that they were horrible and they were abusive and oh my God, I was so wrong. So wrong. They were so wonderful and supportive, and I decided to keep him, and they agreed to support me 100% financially and emotionally, so long as I stayed in school, because education was really important in my family. So again, like a good alcoholic, I was like, okay, I'll stay in school for like 20 more years so you continue to support me. And I did. It took me like 6 years to graduate from college, like 6.5 years to graduate from college. Took me 3.5 years to graduate from law school. I stayed in school forever so my parents would support me. And there, you know, and alcohol was just, it was my best friend. Like, you add teenage pregnancy on top of a girl that is just inherently nervous and anxious and afraid about everything, and at the same time, very driven. Like, it was the only thing that allowed me to breathe. And I remember I thank God. We were just in Seattle with my son, and thank God I have such a good relationship with him, and he does not have this disease. Such a good kid. I'm not proud of the mother that I was when he was younger. I mean, I loved that boy more than life itself, but I needed alcohol like I needed oxygen. I didn't know that. I didn't know that I was in the grips of a disease. And I remember when he was like, and this is right before my mom threatened to take custody of him away from me. This is, back in the 90s, when this is before, social media and everything. And I found a babysitter online for him, complete strangers. And he would sob when I would take him over to that house. And I had my alcohol in there waiting. And I remember dropping him off at that babysitter's. And we didn't have cell phones or anything because I had to drink. You don't understand. I had to drink. This is before I'm 21 years old. And so we were in Nebraska. So I had a fake ID so I could get into bars, but the fake ID didn't work to buy alcohol. And I was usually going to meet a guy, right? Going to meet, but that's already at the age of 20. I was doing stuff like that, and I would leave him there all night. And my mom eventually, she's like, this has got to stop. And she threatened to take custody away from me. And she sent me to treatment. And that began my journey with Alcoholics Anonymous. Because I loved that child, and I was like, okay, I need to stop drinking. And so I went to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous at a clubhouse in Omaha, Nebraska, called the Miller Club. And there are people that, I go back and visit there, and, there's a lot of people that have long-term sobriety there. I was never able to catch it there. I don't know if I never heard it, but I know now that I have the home group that I have, and I've visited groups like this group and Chester's group, that for me, and this is just my experience, all AA is not created equal. And so if you're new, go to different meetings, check stuff out. See where your spirit lights up. See where you get a warm feeling inside, and where you're greeted and hear a message of hope and depth and weight, and something like, oh, yeah. It's what I experienced when I went to my home group now for the first time. So I go to AA. I am like a crazy, radical, feminist, liberal college student that's going to go to law school and save the world. And I've got radical feminist bumper stickers on my cars and tattoos all over me. And I go into this clubhouse and I'm like, I got to stop drinking. And there's a whole bunch of crusty old guys in there. And I'm like, oh, gross. And they were probably like my age now, right? And I couldn't hear anything that anybody says. I just know that I have to stop drinking. And I got a sponsor, and she was a lovely woman, and did her best to help me. We didn't go through the book. I don't really, who knows? I don't know what we did. I know that I didn't drink for 13 months. And boy, let me tell you, that was a miserable 13 months. I didn't do any service positions. The one thing I would do at the clubhouse is I would get up and fill people's coffee in the middle of the meeting, and that's it. If there was anything before the meeting or after the meeting or anything that would inconvenience me at all, the answer was no. Would not sponsor people. I went all the way through the steps up until 12 because I would not sponsor people. I'm like, no, that's stupid. I'm a single mom. I'm busy. I don't have time. And guess what? I drank. And after 13 months of sobriety, and I think that it's going to be different, right? Like, I think this is a pattern for those 24 years of relapse. Is I was confused, and because I didn't understand what alcoholism is and what alcoholism isn't. I didn't understand that I have an allergy of my body, that once I put alcohol in my body in any form, there is no off switch for me. I am done when I run out of alcohol or pass out. And even if I run out of alcohol, I'm going to find a way to get it somewhere. I remember one night I went home from detox in Seattle in an Uber at 3 a.m. And this is in like 2016. And I made that Uber driver stop at the 7-Eleven, and it was like 3 a.m. after they stopped selling alcohol. And I was so crazy. I convinced that clerk to sell alcohol to me at 3 a.m. and he did. I think he felt sorry for me. So even if I ran out of alcohol, I'll find it. I'm a resourceful girl. Or pass out. So I've got that phenomenon of craving. And then when I stop drinking, that is my problem. Alcohol was my solution. And I thought for 24 years, alcohol was my problem, but it was my solution. It helped. It helped with everything. And I stopped drinking. And I am irritable, restless, and discontent. And I have a mind that is obsessed with the ease and comfort that comes at the sense of ease and comfort that comes at once with just a few drinks. Obsessed with that sense of ease and comfort. And I'm just full of anxiety and fear. And at the end of that 13 months in my early 20s, I couldn't breathe again. Young single mom, oh my God, these people are so stupid. This stupid program doesn't work. I worked your stupid stuff. And I had to drink. And that was just the pattern. And I suffered from this delusion that I had this acute condition that because of my childhood, because of some things that had happened in my childhood, I suffer from trauma. I suffer from different mental disorders. I have been diagnosed throughout the years. I have been diagnosed with pretty much everything except schizophrenia. I am like, no joke. I have been on every single medication known to men. I tried psychiatry. I tried hypnotism. I tried shamanic journeys, hot yoga, every single medication out there. And I always got sicker. I never got better. And I really thought that if I just went to AA to not drink, and I'm going to go to AA to treat my not drinking, not going to do all of it, but, I'm going to show up and visit and then find the right combination of doctor, pill, potion, job, car, degree, that I would somehow fix what's wrong with me on the inside and would be able to control and manage my drinking. I honestly believed that, even though I was visiting the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous for 20 years. And I don't know if nobody ever sat me down and explained to me that alcoholism is a disease and is chronic and is fatal. I don't know if nobody ever sat me down and told me that, or if I just didn't hear it. It doesn't really matter, but I did not know that I suffered from alcoholism until I was about 8 months sober in 2018. So 24 years of that, I would have periods of abstinence and I would clean my life up. And again, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I have this really weird ability to keep things together on the outside. Like I finished law school, I passed the bar, and then I'd relapse and would go down hard. I mean, every single time I relapsed, there would be a suicide attempt. My alcohol stopped working for me. I was just so dramatic. Alcohol stopped working for me somewhere in my 20s. But I still drank because it was the only solution I had to abstinence. I hate being abstinence. This is the only solution. I didn't know that AA worked, and these pills and doctors, they're not working. So I kind of just felt like something was inherently wrong with me. So I'd drink and I'd get really depressed. And I'd listen to the same sad suicide song over and over and over. I don't know if anybody else had suicide songs, but I had suicide songs. And one of my favorite ones was Don't Give Up by Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush. And I would listen to that and I would sing and I would cry and just, I gotta end it this time. I gotta end it this time. And I referenced this story last night, but one of the times I had just bought a brand new Mercedes C-Class. And so I was listening to that song over and over, and like Mercy Street, all the Peter Gabriel songs are like really dark. And so I decided I turned my car on and that's it. And had my vodka and drinking. And I just thought you see it in the movies, the carbon monoxide, you just go to sleep. And I woke up the next morning. I was like, what the heck? I'm like, it doesn't smell it here, nothing. And I went to a meeting. And told somebody, and they're like, well, you dingbat, you got a brand new car. It has an automatic CO2 shut off. And I was like, oh. And I couldn't even do that right. But that's what my relapses looked like for 20 years. I'd get a period of abstinence. I would visit AA and take, because I thought that if I went to meetings, I would feel better and wouldn't want to drink. I never once heard, understood anything about like giving. I mean, to me, that was just offensive. I was like, why on earth would I do that? It was offensive to me. And as a result, I could never stay sober. And I thought I had an acute condition. I thought that I had the power to stop and start when I wanted to. And then maybe next time it would be different. And so the last couple years of my drinking were really dark. There were no more, slow dances to Faithfully with anybody or going. There were no more bars. There was no more socializing. I was so alone at the end. I couldn't draw a sober breath unless I was passed out. And the alcohol definitely was not working anymore, but it would still get me to oblivion and would get me to pass out. And then I would wake up the next morning and I would take whatever combination of pills could get me through court or whatever, because I couldn't go to court smelling like alcohol. But then I would have my alcohol in the car ready to go. And as soon as I was done I could only work for like an hour or two, and I was self-employed. So I'd get continuances all the time. And I just had everything set up. So I had people doing stuff for me. And then I would go home and I would drink until I passed out. And I had my two little dogs that I still have, Roger and Jay-Z, and those dogs saved my life. And my little toy poodle, my life was so pathetic at the end, you guys. I was so alone. It was so pathetic. I have a 7-pound toy poodle who's like 13 years old and like on his last leg, but he's the sweetest dog in the world. I was so pathetic. I trained my toy poodle, Jay-Z, how to hug me because I was so alone. And so to this day, this little toy poodle, I'll say, give me a hug. And he hugs and he pushes himself into you. I mean, that's how pathetic I was. And it was just my two little dogs, Facebook, TV, wine. I never even drank wine, but it was the closest. They don't sell liquor in like convenience stores. I was in Seattle. And so there was a 7-Eleven right down the street from me. And so I would just get boxed wine. I was not making drinks. I would not even go to the grocery store. It was too overwhelming to me to get liquor. I would go to 7-Eleven, come home and drink boxed wine. And it was disgusting, but I didn't care because it did the job. And I just got to a point where I felt like I was like, I can't live with this. I can't live without it. I was suffering from the delusion that Alcoholics Anonymous didn't work. At some point, I went off all of the psych meds because I kind of knew that they weren't working. And so I just went off all of them. I stopped seeing a psychiatrist. And by the way, I haven't seen a psychiatrist in over 10 years and have no need for one, which is a miracle. And I just was so depressed one day. I wasn't even depressed when I started drinking, though. On May 16th, 2017, I woke up and it was one of the first sunny days in Seattle. And you guys probably get that here when those first sunny days come. And I had a couple days off of court. I didn't have to be in court for a couple days. So I'm like, right on. Remember those days at the end where you could like drink without like any inhibition at all? Like nobody's going to come over. I got all the alcohol and cigarettes in the world. This is going to be awesome. And like by 4 o'clock, I was so depressed and so lonely, and I couldn't tell my family I had relapsed yet again. It would break their hearts again. Detox doesn't work. Treatment doesn't work. I've been in, 5 or 6 of them. The psychiatrists don't work. There is just something inherently wrong with me, and they're better off without me. And I took a bottle of Xanax and a blackout, and here's where my dog saved me. I knew my life had become so isolated. I had one friend, Jennifer, who's my best friend even today, and she's sober 20 years. And I was still talking to her, but I never saw anybody. And it was just me and my dogs. And I knew that if I didn't text somebody to take care of those dogs, it would be days and they would probably starve to death and run out of water. And I cared about those dogs. And so I sent her a text and said, please take care of the dogs. And she didn't see it for like 2 or 3 hours. She was like at the gym or something. And so by the time they got there, I was completely unconscious and not breathing. And they took me to Providence Hospital in Everett, which was a trauma hospital. And I was on life support for 24 hours. And they had to call my mom and my son and tell them that they didn't know if I was going to wake up or not. And they didn't know if I did wake up, if there was going to be any brain damage. But the good thing is that I think there was a little bit of brain damage because I got really, really stupid in that ICU. I got really, really stupid. And Bob and I had the opportunity this weekend. My daughter-in-law was in the hospital for 3 weeks and she's fine. She's home now. But we got to go to that ICU at Providence. I hadn't been there since May 20th, 2017. And I got to go down and those nurses were so kind to me. They didn't put me on a hold. They said that it was an accidental overdose. And I'm like, okay, but it was nothing accidental about it, but okay. And I couldn't walk or talk or go to the bathroom by myself. I mean, it was bad. I was in there for 4 days, but I detoxed when I was in there. And like I said, I got really, really stupid when I was in there. And it was the first time that I realized that I did not know how to stay entirely away from alcohol and that I was going to drink again. And if I drank again, I was going to die. And I was scared for the first time. All of the self-reliance, it had been 24 years of self-reliance. Marne knows best. Marne knows best. You don't know crap. Was just smashed out of me. And I entered the second phase of my sobriety, which was the attending phase of my sobriety. And I had a sponsor, Judy P., who's still one of my best friends. We were with her this weekend, and that woman saved my life. She gave me a really solid foundation in Alcoholics Anonymous. And she told me to get a home group and to get a service position. And I would call her freaking out. And I can't greet. You don't understand. I have really bad social anxiety and this is crazy. And I don't believe in God and this is stupid. And she was so sweet. She'd just be like, oh, I'm so sorry that you deal with social anxiety. Do you want to stay sober? Yes, I want to say, okay, I'll see you there. Half an hour. Bye. And that woman saved my life. And so for the first time in my life, I surrendered my alcoholism over to my sponsor and Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't believe in God when I got sober. You don't have to believe in God. I did not believe in God for a solid year, probably. But I believed in Judy because she was 30 years sober at the time and she had a sparkle in her eye. She was happy and hadn't had a drink in 30 years. I'm like, how is that even possible? I just didn't understand it. But as I said, I had always been very resourceful and I'm very driven and I can keep things together on the outside and like nobody ever knows. And I'll, hide in the shade that, oh yeah, I was in the psych ward for 3 days, but sober again, like nobody knew. The bar associations didn't know. Nobody knew except my family. But so I turned my alcoholism over to her and discovered that all that's wrong with me is alcoholism. And my husband will get uncomfortable with this, but it's true. I discovered I had alcoholism when I was like 8 months sober, and she had given me a set of his CDs. It was like one of two things that I ever heard of his before I met him. And I'll never forget, I was driving down the 405 and he was talking about the feelings of untreated alcoholism and about how alcohol had saved his life. And he was telling the rat story. I say, you had me at rats. And about the experiment with rats. And I called Judy and I was like, Judy, you're not going to believe it. She's like, what? And I said, I have alcoholism. And she's like, yes, you do. First time. Like in and out of AA for 24 years. But it was such a relief to me. I'm like, that's all that's wrong with me. You mean the anxiety? You mean the fear of people? The not fitting in? The insomnia? That's alcoholism? I was like, oh my God, I thought I needed a pill for that. So it was a huge relief. But I didn't understand that I needed to turn my will and my life over to the care of God and my sponsor in Alcoholics Anonymous. And my will is what I want. It's money and finance, money and romance. And at 2 years sober, all in Alcoholics Anonymous with a sponsor, now sponsoring people, I had an affair with a married man, and he was a prosecutor and I was a public defender. Whoops. Probably not a good idea. And my sponsor would laugh at me and say, this is not going to end well. And I was like, no, you don't understand. He's going to leave her. He told me he's going to leave her. I swear he's going to leave her. He's going to leave her. And she's like, oh, sweetheart, if you survive this, you're going to help so many women. And she would just yell at me. And because I'm all in Alcoholics Anonymous for my sobriety, but I didn't understand that I am still managing my own life. I am still making all of the decisions in my life. Thank God I was facing into AA. Thank God I did have a home group, a service position, a sponsor. I almost drank. When that blew up and his wife found out, and guess what? He didn't leave her. His wife found out. We both got fired from our jobs. We both faced bar complaints because that was a huge conflict of interest. And that went on for like a year and a half. And I was devastated. I mean, I really believed he was going to leave his wife. I was shocked. I was the only one that was shocked, though. The only one. And so, Judy's trying to help me through that. And I mean, I almost drank. And I went through a period where I was like, okay, I'm either going to drink or I'm going to throw myself into Alcoholics Anonymous. And something in me, and this is during COVID. And I was listening to speakers on Zoom, and I started hearing stuff of, and I had been to panels and stuff with Judy, but I started trying to take meetings into jails. I was going to tons of Zoom, something shifted in me, and I knew I had to do more. And through a series of events, I reached out to my now husband and said, hey, are you doing any Zoom meetings? And he's like, well, as a matter of fact, I am. And next thing I know, I'm going to all of these Zooms and we connect. And by divine appointment, I ended up in Las Vegas. And this is, I got to say, this is before Debbie was sponsoring me. I need to make that very clear. I go to Las Vegas on a first date with my husband, and I never went home. And I wanted to thank him for coming. He's been with me all week in Seattle, supporting me and my family, having Thanksgiving in the hospital with my daughter-in-law, and then was with me last night and tonight. And he's just an incredible husband. But when I moved to Las Vegas, I really do believe it was divine appointment. I believe that we are more useful together than apart, at least me, that is. I can't speak for him. But I experienced 3 legacy AA for the first time in my entire life. And we were talking about this the other night. And like I said, Judy saved my life. absolutely saved my life, gave me a solid foundation in Alcoholics Anonymous. We were just up in Seattle, and I have never been exposed to any Three Legacy AA. And when I say three, and if you're new, it's recovery, unity, and service. There's strong recovery AA in Seattle. It's just, from my experience, it's just real, it's one legacy AA. And I think both Debbie and Bob talk about there's three legacies, and it's like, if you have a stool that only has one leg, it's going to fall over. You got to have all three of those legacies to hold up the stool. And the first time I experienced a Three Legacy meeting, it was actually at our home. It was during COVID, and my husband, and this meeting is part of our home group. It's our Tuesday night meeting, and he's had a book study for, it started out as sponsees, and now it's been going on for 40 plus years. And it's a book study, and it's amazing. The first 45 minutes is just a step study and tradition study, and we do history. And then the last 45 minutes is participation. And I went to that meeting the first Tuesday we had it there, and something was different. I was like, I'm home. I heard a message of depth and weight, and a message that I could identify with, and had hope, and felt this unity and love there. I mean, I still get goosebumps thinking I had never experienced that before. There was a spirit in that meeting that I had never experienced. And that was one of the first things that happened. And then I knew that I needed more in sponsorship. Like I said, Judy saved my life, and she is one of my best friends, and I have so much respect for her. But I got led by a sister sponsee to Debbie. And that changed the course of my sobriety. There's just been a whole bunch of different events. And my move to Vegas was not an easy transition. I had no idea how much of my ego and identity were wrapped up in my career. I had always been self-supporting. I had always been a very successful attorney. And then I moved to Las Vegas, and they have a different bar exam. And I thought, oh, easy peasy. I'll take that bar exam, no problem, right? I'm so arrogant. Nope. 3 times it took me. 3 times. Twice I failed, and it was devastating. Twice I failed, and the 3rd time I finally passed. But it was 3 years that I didn't have a career, and it was very, very difficult for me, and I just had no idea. But in that time, I went through the steps with Debbie. I actually went through the traditions with her first, and that changed my life, changed how I'm showing up in my relationship. And I had no idea the personal application of the traditions and how much they changed my life. And I believe it's my experience that they're the higher set of spiritual principles in this program. I have to do the steps to clear everything out. But in order to maintain my relationships and maintain unity and really stay happy, joyous, and free, I have to practice those traditions. And in that 3 years, I discovered what my primary purpose was. God took that career away from me for a while. You know, the first night that I found out that I didn't pass the bar exam, I thought it was the end of the world. I literally thought it was the end of the world. And I showed up to my home group that night, and like within 24 hours, I had like 6 new sponsees. And I'm like, okay, God, I see you. And so for those 3 years, and it just was not an easy transition. It was very unusual. You know, if you engage in gossip-worthy behavior, guess what? You're going to get gossiped about. And moving to Las Vegas on a first date and never leaving is gossip-worthy behavior. And Debbie would give me the instruction of, you're too busy for all that. You don't have time for that. You're too busy helping the new girls. Don't bend over and pick it up. You don't have time for that. You earned your seat there. They will either get used to you or leave. And it was some of the soundest advice I ever got. And I got really, really busy. And so in losing all of my career and all of that, I discovered what my primary purpose was. And I started sponsoring a whole bunch of women and started taking women through the steps and was an active member of a home group. And I show up and I serve. I don't question anything. I show up and I serve. And it is, as much as I love Bella, it's to me, it's the best group in the world. And if you don't think that your home group is the best group in the world, get a new home group. I don't know, but I love our home group. And I mean, my life is just, I have a life beyond my wildest dreams. It's so full. I have too many commitments. I am over committing. I don't know how I got this life. I have an amazing marriage. Who's, my husband is an amazing member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have an amazing sponsor. And, the last 6 years, I have absolutely been changed from the inside out. And I had nothing to do with it except to show up. And my feet are trained so well. I don't miss my home group, abstinent, actor, God, or emergency. And I said this last night, and I'll close with this. I have a healthy fear of drinking because I drank for 24 years. I drank again, 24 years. So I have a very healthy fear of drinking. But what I am more terrified of is when I am leaving Alcoholics Anonymous, one excuse at a time, one missed commitment, one resentment, one they're not doing it right, and I don't even know it. Because my alcoholism doesn't tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, let's drink. No, my alcoholism taps me on the shoulder and says, they're stupid. They're not doing it right at your home group. You need to be doing da-da-da-da-da-da-da. They're stupid. She doesn't know what she's talking about. You don't need to go tonight. You worked hard. You traveled all weekend. You need to take the night off. That's how my alcoholism shows up, so it can get me separate. So then it'll say, I think I'm okay. I haven't been to a meeting for a month and I'm fine. I think I can drink this time and it'll be different because I've done it 1,000 times. That's what I'm scared of. So that's why I just take my commitments super serious. I'm like really serious about my commitments. And I just, I am comfortable in my own skin 99% of the time. All those crazy emotions that I suffered from for so long. I mean, I'm still crazy. Don't get me wrong. I was like insane in the Seattle airport the other day. Insane, raging lunatic that I'll have to tell Debbie about tomorrow. But most of the time I am like, okay, I'm just okay. And I'm happy. And like, I'll take that. And alcohol, all of these actions that I've taken in Alcoholics Anonymous that seem really inconvenient over time produced the same result that alcohol did. And so where, alcohol helped for so long, now it's AA helps. So that's what I'm going to stick with. And I'm just really grateful to be here. Thanks, you guys.